talking to you, it's more like Hulk 2, and Captain America is like a massive cameo.
Hello and welcome to May the Review Be With You, Nick and Joe. I'm Joe.
And I'm Nick.
And today on the podcast, we are talking about Marvel's newest entry, Captain America Brave New World, led by Anthony Mackie, starring brand new Captain America, Sam Wilson, at least brand new for our cinematic franchise. First time Anthony Mackie is leading a picture on the big screen. Very exciting stuff today. Nick, heading into this movie, how are you feeling?
I went in with low expectations. I didn't do a lot of deep diving online trying to figure out what the plot was, and I think they were keeping it under wraps pretty well. But I kind of did it on purpose because I didn't want to be swayed either way. I really liked Captain America and the Winter Soldier TV show, right? And this is when, of course, Sam gets his Captain America suit at the end, right? And I really enjoyed that series. Probably one of my favorite ones they did. But I had no idea what to expect with the movie as far as the plot goes. Going into it, I was like, this movie's probably going to be really important moving forward. And I don't want them to screw it up.
Yeah, I was pumped going in. For a lot of the same reasons that you just said. It felt like this was going to be important just for setting up the Avengers down the road, right? Because like we still didn't really have a team, and that was even one of the plot lines of this movie. But mostly, I was just pumped that Anthony Mackie gets to like get into the driver's seat and host the show, right? Also, upon finding out that we were gonna have Sam Wilson versus a Hulk, I was pretty interested about what normal human man would do against something so impossibly challenging, right?
Right.
I cannot say I was totally satisfied on that, but
Right.
I did love seeing Anthony Mackie at the helm here. In any case, so we did see the movie. We know what happened. You do now know what the plot is. What are your first takeaways from the movie? How do you feel about it?
I loved it. I exceeded expectations.
Nice.
Fantastic way to get into the next couple films in the next phase. Anthony Mackie's awesome. He crushed it. He's definitely Captain America. Anyone who disagrees is a hater, and they can just go play with rocks or something. Plot wise, I honestly, the second they mentioned Celestials, like 20 minutes in, I was just like, thank you, God, finally. We're finally getting some answers.
After years of an alien mass, continental mass emerging in the Pacific Ocean, someone finally talked about it.
Like 1,200 days basically since Eternals came out, and we finally got some proper acknowledgement of this, what they're calling Celestial Island. That whole situation, that whole plot line, awesome. Loved it. Very like Cuban Missile Crisis-y feeling to me. And of course, like at some point, I forget which X-Men movie it was, but there's an X-Men movie that like covers this.
Yeah, it's literally the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's
the Cuban Missile Crisis, like in the X-Men. Yeah, exactly.
First Class.
So right, First Class. Thank you. So this felt like a play on the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then also a play on First Class's version of the Cuban Missile Crisis in a way. But I like
actually,
that.
I really, just to jump in there, not to let go of that thought, I didn't think about that, and I really like that idea, considering that this is supposed to be like a spy thriller, first and foremost, like, with the way that this movie like starts, right? And to be referencing a part of history with the Cold War and like how important spy tactics were back then, that's a good call. That's absolutely something that they were trying to reference here.
Yeah, that's what it felt like, at least to me. Which is cool. I mean, I enjoyed it. It didn't feel like overdone or anything, It just kind of was something that popped in my head. It's like, oh, this is very kind of a weird situation to be in. I feel like we've been here kind of with some different things before, but of course,
it's weird situation.
Yeah.
Global annihilation. Weird situation to be in.
Well,
can't imagine that happening.
Dude,
too real. Sorry.
It was really good. It was really a good film. Adamantium is what's inside the celestial being. We didn't know that before. I don't think.
It was not confirmed in the MCU.
Right. So that opens up tons of questions, but we'll get to that. What about you? Like, what are your thoughts where you're at?
I thought it was okay. I thought it was like pretty like middle of the pack for Marvel movies. Like
Yeah.
it didn't like wow me as far as like the movie overall, and I didn't think it was that as bad as like a lot of people are like yelling about, you know? Like I've seen people say that it's the worst Captain America movie, which like maybe there's an argument for that, but like
okay.
honestly, like I feel like this movie actually makes more sense than Captain America Civil War, and I love Civil War. I think Civil War is super fun. But as far as like the logic of this movie goes, I think it makes more sense. You know, like Zemo isn't a super genius who has like the superpower of guessing probability on his side, and somehow his plan comes together, right? People seem to forget that about like Zemo's plan and about how much it doesn't make sense and like how much he just needs like certain people to like make the exact decision that he needs, right? Whereas like at least like they have the explanation here of that's just this super villain's power, you know? Right. But yeah, I thought it was, as far as the plot line goes, I thought it was pretty like run of the mill. The thing that I thought was absolutely astounding was the fight choreography for this movie, and how Sam feels like his very own like Captain America, you know, like how he's incorporating like things that he learned as Falcon. He's incorporating what he's learned as Cap, and he's made this whole new hero, right? The thing that like really stands out to me is that dogfight in the sky, and he's throwing the shield around. Red Wing catches the shield, and like Red Wing's following behind him with the shield, almost as if the shield is its own character and it's flying behind him. Awesome. Freaking awesome. All the fight choreography with Sam Wilson is chef's kiss. Is so good.
Yeah, they crushed that, especially like you said with how the specialization of his suit, right? With all the Wakandan technology, like incorporating all that into his fight choreography was sick. Like definitely a highlight of the film for sure. And it's going to be really cool to see what other things they come up with in the future, right? Because this is like really his first film as Captain America, so I can only imagine like the choreography can get pretty wild. And who knows like what other upgrades he might get, right? He's kind of like, I don't know, the MCU is like Batman in a way, right? He's just got like all this insanely cool tech and he's a badass when it comes to fighting. So he's just kind of, I don't know. That's what I was thinking during the film. I don't know how accurate it is, but he's kind of got like a Batman-esque vibe with the tech he's got.
No, I see what you're going for it there, and this is actually something I want to bring in this next segment that we want to talk about, which was directorial themes. This movie was directed by Julius Ona, who I gotta say for a big budget movie, I think he did a fine job. However, I will say that from what I saw in his most notable movie in his cinematography or in his background for film was a movie I absolutely hated, which was the Cloverfield Paradox. I was really sad to see that he had directed that, actually. In any case, this is a huge step up.
Well, but the bar's that low, Joe.
But yeah, so like as far as themes that is spotted in this, one thing that they at least stated, I don't know if they nailed this toward the end, was that Sam Wilson is just a man, right? And in a world full of like super beings, aliens, and gods, and AI, how does just a man, just a human, step up to all of that, right? How does his strength of character at the end of the day win, right? And I thought, as far as like giving us an antagonist, presenting like the Red Hulk, I thought that was really interesting. Now, we'll get into the decision on whether or not revealing that in the marketing was a good idea. But as far as like our climax goes, I was really hooked on that idea of like, okay, how does normal man actually defeat the most powerful thing that we really know of physically, right?
What did you think of that at the end? Do you want to talk about it real quick?
Yeah, I do. So there are more themes that I want to talk about, but like as far as this one goes, I think this was an interesting theme to get into, and I think it's absolutely crucial for Sam's character, especially for him to try and live in the shadow of Steve Rogers, right? Who had the super soldier serum. I don't really think they nailed it in the end. You know, like when he brought him to the cherry blossom trees, I was a little scared. Oh no, they're gonna try to appeal to his humanity here with like a speech. And they made a joke about that, and I was like, oh, that's great. Okay, cool. We're not doing it. But then they doubled down and we're like, no, we actually are going to do the cheesy speech where we appeal to your humanity.
Right.
And I wasn't super into that. I thought the fight before that speech was pretty interesting. And like he got a little scrappy too.
Yeah.
Right? With like the blade that's stuck in his thigh and he kicks it in.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see Sam being resourceful. So yeah, I was a little disappointed that in the end that's what they came down to. I think Sam does need to, his strength of character does need to be the thing that wins the day, but maybe not in the come on, fight it, you're better than this sort of way.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I love the scrappiness and the resourcefulness, just like you said. I think it was really interesting, like how they almost finished the fight, right, with him putting the wing like right in his side and like having to cause so much damage, and only a Wakandan like wing could pierce a Hulk, I guess, right? And so that was an interesting way. And then the card just like gets thrown on top of him, and you're like, okay, is he actually down? And of course, like he's not, but he's distraught enough to where he's at the point where it's possible to talk him down now, based on all the damage that's been done to Hulk.
Sun
right?
was getting real low.
Now, the thing the movie did really well the whole time was set up the cherry blossoms and how important it is to him and his daughter, right? So they set that up through the whole film, and that was the only reason that like it did kind of land at the end, right? When he like the cherry blossom falls in his palm as Sam's finishing his speech, and that's kind of like an all-encompassing like, okay, like it's time for me to calm down. I think the way that they could have brought it home completely is if they actually had Liv Tyler show up. If they had his daughter show up.
I do agree with that. I think Liv needed to show up earlier in the movie.
I think if she would have showed up with like the rest of the police and the paramedics after he gets stabbed with the wing at the very end, instead of and as Sam is giving the speech, if she like emerges and doesn't even have to have a line, but if she just emerges there and like looks at her father, I think then it lands better.
I completely agree with that. Because the emotional payoff of him seeing her on the raft, I thought was pretty lacking.
Yeah, like I get that, but I think it would have had a bigger impact at the very end of that fight, and it would have landed a little better, right? And then we wouldn't be having this conversation in this way. But yeah, that was my thought during that battle.
You know, I think that's a great thought. And honestly, like I think like even Sam maybe even talking to like Liv Tyler like earlier in the film just to establish some sort of connection there,
right?
And like have him like in his resourcefulness knowing like how important she is,
right?
Like I don't know, bringing Joaquin Torres into the climax and like, Joaquin, I'm really busy, but like there's someone I need you to go pick up, right? Like something along those lines. There was one thing though in that climax that as part of like I guess the theme of that fight and like you said how important the cherry blossoms were. One thing that I loved as a detail. So Red Hulk, for comic accuracy, Red Hulk is red because he burns so hot that he turns red. The dude can actually like the gamma that he emits is like crazy hot and like it melts things. Like you can't touch him because of how hot he is.
Oh wow.
Which is why when the cherry blossoms fall on him, they burn, which I thought was an amazing touch, like metaphorically speaking. Like not even like the image of these things like have an impact on him. Like he's too angry to even see the cherry blossoms.
Oh yeah.
You know, like I loved that. I was like, yes, right, yeah. I love the symbolism. Fantastic.
That's an awesome.
Why the cheesy speech?
Yeah, right. There was a couple of those towards the end I didn't love, like the one when he's sitting with Torres in the hospital, although Anthony Mackie really delivers the ending of that speech so well. He's awesome. He's a phenomenal actor, and so that was cool. But you know, I mean, it's a Marvel film. You're gonna get some cheesy lines.
I'm fine with cheesy. Like superheroes movies should be cheesy, right?
Yeah.
But like, I think if you build up like Sam as like, you know, what does a mortal man do against like a godlike creature? I think you need to be able to deliver a little bit more than just like search yourself, you know, like.
Yeah, I'm with you for sure. Granted, in a way, he's also defeating Samuel Stearns in this film, right? Like he's also the antagonist. So,
which I do have to get into that as well. Like okay. One of the other themes of this movie is and we talked about earlier about how this movie really echoes on previous spy thriller films, right? It's trying to build like that sense of paranoia. Who do you trust in a brave new world, right? And with Samuel Stearns as our villain, who is, you know, mind controlled people, you know, there's that whole like sleeper cell like agent of like circa, you know, the Soviet Union, right? And I thought that was really fun, a really fun idea for Sam as a challenge in this, right? But like it kind of fell flat for me for two reasons. A, it kind of felt like we abandoned the paranoia maybe about halfway into the movie, and also it felt like Sam was really good at foiling Samuel Stearns' plans, like all the time.
Yeah.
Like for some reason, Sam for his like or Samuel Stearns, not to be confused with Sam Wilson, Samuel Stearns, for some reason, cannot compute Sam Wilson.
His probability for what Sam's gonna do way higher than what Sam actually does. You know, it's just like it doesn't. You know, and now what is that? Is that supposed to suggest that Sam Wilson is not like predictable and that he's grown enough as a character and a hero that part of his shtick and part of his superpower, if you will, is the unpredictability of what he's going to do. That's a cool thought thing. That's a cool thought to go down. I think
that's what they were going for, but like I don't think it hits.
It didn't hit, really. Yeah, it didn't. It was just like, I mean, the part where they leave Isaiah Bradley after he leaves Isaiah Bradley talking to him, and him and Torres are on the way to Echo One, and this is when Stearns, you know, orders like, you know, or mind controls people to kill the other people who tried to assassinate the president. Like, that's when Sam and Torres find out that like there's been a shooting at the prison and they don't turn around. That makes sense because Isaiah Bradley was very clear. He was like, don't come back for me. And that made sense that Sam wanted to keep going because, you know, he had already had this conversation and he knows that there's no way he can help him by going back. But apparently there was like a 90% probability that he would turn around. Like that didn't make any sense. Too high. Probabilities were too high for Sam Wilson in this one, I think, for sure. So ridiculous.
Yeah, he was the uncontrollable variable for some reason. And like you said, I think the reason is, you know, his indomitable spirit, which again goes really into the whole like character thing for Sam and why Steve chose Sam. But like, it honestly, the way they presented it, it just makes Samuel Stearns, the leader, not look good. He doesn't really come across as a very intimidating presence.
Right. Yeah. One quick thing that's cool about Samuel Stearns though, and the actor that plays him, Tim Blake Nelson, he didn't want to just have like CGI dots on his head, so he requested to actually have like his headpiece like built. He wanted to feel the weight, so it's kind of a practical effect in the film because I think there's a lot of CGI in this one, but that's one of the practical effects they used. They actually like gave him like did makeup and he had like felt the weight of this like crazy thing that's on his head. So I thought that was kind of cool. It definitely looked disgusting. Anyway, quick side note.
Good side note. But I'm glad you brought him up because I think something that this movie did that was very ambitious was for a non-Avengers film, this movie introduces a ton of characters.
Yeah.
So like just to like rattle some off here, and I have a list here, so I want to make sure I get everybody. So we get to see the return of Isaiah Bradley after the Winter Soldier and Falcon and the Winter Soldier show, right? We see the return of Samuel Stearns, which like that movie is now for sure canon.
Yeah.
Wild. Layla Taylor is introduced. Sidewinder, played by Giancarlo Esposito, is here. We also got the return of Joaquin Torres, right? And then, of course, the return of Thaddeus Ross, but this time new actor, Harrison Ford, which, I wanted to talk about just the expansion of characters here, but can we take a second to talk about Harrison Ford?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's the best part of this film.
Yeah, he's awesome. That was... I mean, again, I didn't look too much into the plot, and I really just knew what everyone knew from trailers. And it's Harrison Ford, so obviously A-list actor, but I didn't expect his role to be this big. I didn't realize it was going to be essentially surrounding his past, right? Like, this is...
He was so big in this movie, I would argue he's the main character.
Right. Like, most of this stuff going on was his fault or his doing, and Sam's just kind of trying to clean up after him the whole time. So interesting. But yeah, Harrison Ford still got it. Awesome performance.
I think it's so funny that Harrison Ford, like, when people try to talk to him about nerd stuff, like, he's clearly so bothered by it, and he's like, ugh, nerds. But he's so good at playing in nerd stuff. It's like, dude, it's not our fault. We're obsessed with you, okay? Like, stop being so goddamn great at this.
It's so funny. So funny. Yeah, he crushed it, though.
The scene where he's in the submarine, which the moment you see him in the submarine, you're like, oh, this is a high pressure situation. Yeah. It immediately makes you think of Bruce Banner in the helicarrier in Avengers, when he's like, you brought the most unstable person into an area like this, into a floating thing in the sky, right? The scene where he's fighting his transformation and Stearns is like egging him on, I thought that was the best scene in the movie.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And because you thought he was going to lose it, and then Captain America and Torres are successful with stopping the jets from shooting each other down and from firing any more missiles, and so that kind of calms him back down. So you just get to the point where he's about to lose it and he doesn't. They back off, and then of course they wait till the very end to show him losing it, which was brilliant. Especially with how the trailers were and everything. I was like, oh, I mean, it's gonna be weird. Like, how are they gonna do this? Is he gonna be Red Hulk the whole time? Like, what's going on? We didn't even get to see it till the very end, which I thought was awesome and a great choice for the film in general.
That leads me on here to our next topic that I really want to talk about, and that's the marketing of this movie. I think revealing that Red Hulk was in this movie was such a huge mistake. Can you imagine how shocking it would be to see that scene where he's fighting the transformation and you let the audience come to that conclusion? Like, for those who know who Red Hulk is, right?
Right.
And then, like, later, for those who don't know who Red Hulk is, like, get to see that payoff. Like, this was, I think, an example of either, like, extremely bad marketing or really great marketing. I don't know which one it is, because, like, here's the thing. There are probably people who came to the movie to come watch, Sam Wilson versus a Red Hulk. Yeah,
I don't know. I almost feel like they had to do it because, man, it's a tough call on whether that was a good idea or not to tell us beforehand. I feel like people might have been more annoyed if they didn't know it was coming. And then all of a sudden, oh wait, there's just another Hulk now. Just with like how some people are feeling about the MCU, I feel like if they didn't know beforehand, it might have made them mad in the moment rather than excited. Although, if you think about how the movie went, to your point, that would have been a really cool way to kind of reveal it without fully going there until 40 minutes later when they finally finish it off like that. So, I don't know. We'll never know.
There's another universe where we walked into this blind and then we walked out of the theater and we were all like, can you believe it? Can you believe they did that? I think that could have been, especially like for the theme of like paranoia.
Yeah.
I think that really could have
done the job.
I think this movie would have rang with a lot more people or resonated with a lot more people had that not been all over the marketing. Again, to the point of the main character of this movie was Thaddeus Ross.
Yeah. Speaking of characters, one you didn't mention, I don't think. Is it Sabra or Sabra?
Oh, Sabra.
Sabra.
Yeah, I did not bring her up.
Shira Haas, played by Shira Haas.
Mm-hmm.
Frickin' Red Room. Like, we got like another Red Room warrior, essentially. which I was not expecting at all. Like when we first see her character, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be annoyed about her the whole movie. I immediately do not like this character. But it only took like 40 minutes for it to completely flip because she realized that her and Sam were on the same side. And then you find out that she was trained in the Red Room, and you're just like, okay, we're getting another Black Widow, basically.
This is actually what I meant to get into before when we were talking about like an expanded cast of characters, right, from all sides. I think Ruth is a great example because, like you said, we have influence of the Red Room in this movie,
right?
Which I want to. So I know that this movie went through a bunch of reshoots, right? Which like that doesn't mean anything for anyone that's like, oh, this movie sucked because there were reshoots. Like most movies do that. Most movies go through reshoots. But I'm wondering if there was a version of this movie early on with like the inclusion of a character literally from Russia that was part of like the paranoia theme about like who do you trust, right?
Right.
And like ultimately this is always going to be a character of who you trusted, right? But because of her background, you're led to believe, well, maybe there's something bad about this character, right?
Right.
But yeah, her introduction was interesting. I enjoyed her. Giancarlo Esposito as Sidewinder, he's always super fun. He's always great at playing a bad guy.
Yeah.
And what was nice about him, and really all of our villains, I'm pretty sure. What was nice about all of our villains in this movie is I don't think any of them died. So like, there's promise for them to all return in later MCU films.
Yeah, and you know, we're getting we got some more insight into the Raft. Listen, the more bad guys you put in one place, the more of a chance something goes wrong and they all get out. I'm just gonna say that.
Possible Marvel plot line.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. There's no way the Raft doesn't get compromised at some point in the future. That just I don't know. It seems like something to potentially keep an eye out for. But my main questions after this film are Adamantium. Are we getting X-Men in our universe, right? Like, we just had Deadpool and Wolverine, but we don't have X-Men in this particular Earth, right? Or in this multiverse, we don't have the X-Men. It's not been established. Is the Adamantium inside the Celestial that's being mined now our first real, like, hey, the X-Men are coming? Although there was a reference in Mrs. Marvel, the TV show, to X-Men as well, right? So that's my main question here from this film. Like, what's going on there? And then, of course, who are the new Avengers going to be? Because now Sam's going to have to get a band together.
The biggest question mark is why the Thunderbolts weren't mentioned in this movie. And my logic there is, so it's the next movie coming out. It's weird that the post-credit ending here didn't set up the next movie. Like, very, very strange choice there. But the Thunderbolts are thus named the Thunderbolts because they were named after Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross in the comics. Like, he's the guy who sets him up, right? So, like, when he was like, I need a new Avengers squad, I was like, that's where they're going with this. I see the Thunderbolts. But nothing. So, like, that's my biggest question mark. What happened to this part of the script where that was involved?
Right. And, well, he's just in prison now, right? That's his for the forever.
Right.
So, and it's not him, it's Valentina that's setting up the Thunderbolts, as we know from the trailers and from, you know, some previous post-credit scenes. So that's probably why they didn't go with it, because that's also
he is part of that movie, for the record.
He could be, yeah, but that also might be why there's an asterisk next to Thunderbolts. It's because
that's not their name.
That's what their name is in the comics, but this version of the MCU is taking some liberties and just going a slightly different route. So the asterisk.
No, I think you're right. Especially with the quote that John Carter has during the trailer, where he's like, "Thank you, like, let's not be the Thunderbolts," right?
Right.
So, like, yeah, the title of the movie's end is going to be something different, right? We'll see what it actually is.
Yeah, that'll be.
I will say this: I do have a prediction for the future that I just came up with as you were talking about Celestial Island. This is going to be my MCU Hail Mary, as far as called it goes. Okay, so Samuel Stearns at the end of this movie references like the war that we're waiting for regarding like the multiverse like imploding, right? All right, so the comic that whole like story is based on is called Time Runs Out, and when time runs out happens, basically Mr. Fantastic decides that there's no way to save the Earth, and there's no way to save the universe. So in a last-ditch effort, as their universe is dying, he takes raw material from let's just call it a celestial god, right? Like a god of the universe that died on the moon. He takes raw material from that, and he creates like an aircraft that will survive like the end of the universe, right? I think that that's what they're trying to use the Celestial at Celestial Island for. You know, that comic goes, I think that they've set themselves up for something very similar for the end of like the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? The way that they're going to survive and past like the next Avengers movie into Avengers, what would it be, 5? Into Avengers 5, is they're going to use that Celestial, the body, the raw material of that Celestial, the adamantium, to survive the end of the universe and then bridge up into the next Avengers film, Avengers 5. Like the remnants of like the survivors of that ship that is going to be built.
Interesting. All right, I like the Hail Mary.
But yeah, as far as this movie goes, Nick, out of 5, I'd probably give it a 3. Just right down the middle for me, you know?
Okay. No, for me, honestly, I think 3.8. I enjoyed it. I definitely watch it again. I love this Celestial thing finally in the adamantium. So like, and Captain America, Anthony Mackie, Sam Wilson, just chef's kiss. Fantastic. Love that.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
Oh, Captain, my Captain. So yeah, 3.8 for me. And then you had a question I want to bring up. Is this Captain America 4 or Hulk 2?
You know what? I'm glad that you reminded me about this. Yeah.
Honestly, after talking to you, it's more like Hulk 2, and Captain America is like a massive cameo.
Right. There's so much like Incredible Hulk stuff in this movie.
This is Hulk 2, but
it almost
remember,
feels
they
like
can't use the word Hulk in a movie.
If you had watched
you can't call
any of the Captain America movies, and you had just watched the Incredible Hulk, you would know exactly what's going on.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. But they can't use the word Hulk in the title, so they had to make it a Captain America film. Legally, they can't use the word Hulk in a title for a movie without paying. So they had to make it a Captain America film.
There it is. It all comes down to the rights.
But it's Hulk 2. It's Captain America and the Hulk is what it is.
He's a friend from work.
He's a friend from work. Oh, man.
But yeah, absolutely. I'm there with you. It's a sequel to The Incredible Hulk. Yeah. Nick, if we have more thoughts on Captain America 4, it's the best way to keep up with us.
If you want to find out more, please hit that subscribe button. Let us know in the comments what you thought. You can find us on Threads and YouTube at May the Review Be With You. And until next time,
may the review be with you.
Peace.